Hi, everyone, and welcome back to week 4 of Connected Through Literature, a storytime program presented by the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio. I'm Becca, and I'm happy to be back with all of you today. Much thanks to Mr. Brian for taking you through the idea of race and ethnicity last week with our story Mixed Me. Today, we are going to shift gears and read one of my very favorite stories, such a fun story, called Those Shoes by Mary Beth Bolts, and it's illustrated by Noah Z. Jones. This story, we're going to tackle the topic of socioeconomics. This is a big word that some of us might not know anything about, or maybe some of you have heard it before but aren't quite sure what it means. Socioeconomic status is talking about how much money your family makes. So everybody has a different socioeconomic status, and it depends on what your parents' jobs are or what adult you live with, what job they have, the level of education. So if you went to college, if you went to grad school or a different type of medical school, different levels of education. And it also talks about where you live, the community you live in, the type of house or apartment that you live in. So there's so many different things that make up socioeconomic status. And when we think about it as students, it's really about how much money we have for things like needs and wants, and how that comes up with our interactions with other students. And so we're really going to dig in and talk about that more as we start our story, Those Shoes by Mary Beth Bolts. I have dreams about those shoes. Black high tops, 2 white stripes. So here's our main character here in the corner. And he's looking at this advertisement that's big on the wall. It says, buy these shoes. And we've got the black high tops with white stripes. He's really wanting those shoes. He's dreaming about them. Grandma, I want them. There's no room for want around here, just need, Grandma says. And what you need are new boots for winter. So wants and needs are different and sometimes hard to tell apart. So a need is something we need to survive as humans. We need shelter, we need a place to live, we need food, we need water, but we don't necessarily need candy. Is it food? Yes, but we don't need candy, but we do need some type of food to keep our bodies energized and going. And we do need clothes. We need clothes to protect our bodies, to protect our feet in the winter. And that's why Grandma's saying that he needs new boots. But he doesn't need those cool black high top sneakers, but he wants them. Brandon T comes to school in those shoes. He says he's the fastest runner now, not me. I was always the fastest runner before those shoes came along. Nate comes to school in those shoes. Antonio and I count how many times Nate goes to the bathroom. 7 times in one day, just so he can walk up and down the hall real slow. So their friend Nate just likes to show off his shoes by leaving class and walking up and down the halls. Next, Alan Jacoby and Terrence each get a pair. So now all the boys at school, they're all getting the same shoes. Also, some of the girls are too. Anyone can wear those shoes. Then, one day in the middle of kickball, one of my shoes comes apart. Looks like you could use a new pair, Jeremy, Mr. Alfrey, the guidance counselor, says. He brings out a box of shoes and other stuff he has for kids who need things. He helps me find the only shoes that are my size, Velcro, like the ones my little cousin Marshall wears. They have an animal on them from a cartoon I don't think anybody ever watched. So now Jeremy needs a new pair of shoes. His shoes fell apart. And so the guidance counselor, Mr. Alfred, gave him a pair that he had, probably from another kid who lost them, might be from Lost and Found or shoes that they've collected at the school. But it doesn't sound like Jeremy really likes these shoes that he got from Mr. Alfred, does it? When I come back to the classroom, Alan Jacoby takes one look at my Mr. Alfrey shoes and laughs. And so do Terrence, Brandon T., and everyone else. The only kid not laughing is Antonio Parker. At home, Grandma says, "How kind of Mr. Alfrey." I nod and turn my back. I'm not going to cry about any dumb shoes. But when I'm writing my spelling words later, every word looks like the word shoes. And my grip is so tight on my pencil, I think it might bust. So Jeremy's feeling really upset. All of the kids in his class laughed at him for the shoes that he has to wear because he, broke his other ones, and those are the ones that Mr. Alfrey had for him. And sometimes kids can be bullied depending on how much money their family makes, that socioeconomic status that we're talking about. If someone doesn't have the coolest name brand sneakers or clothes, then they can be made fun of. And we really have to make sure we're thinking about how we make other people feel, because it shouldn't matter how much someone's family makes or what shoes they wear. They're a friend, they're your peer, they're your classmate. On Saturday, Grandma says, "Let's check out those shoes you're wanting so much. I got a little bit of money set aside. Might be enough, you never know." At the shoe store, Grandma turns the shoes over so she can check the price. When she sees it, she sits down heavy. "Maybe they wrote it down wrong," I say. Grandma shakes her head. So Grandma tried to get the shoes for him, but they were just too much money to spend on shoes for Jeremy's grandma. Then I remember the thrift shops. What if there's a rich kid who outgrew his or got 2 pairs for Christmas and had to give one of them away? We ride the bus to the first thrift shop. Black cowboy boots, pink slippers, sandals, high heels, every kind of shoes except the ones I want. We ride the bus to the second thrift shop. Not a pair of those shoes in sight. Around the corner is the third thrift shop. See something in the window. So thrift shops, sometimes if we clean out our closets and give clothes away, we can drop them off at thrift shops or at Goodwill or places that will resell people's clothes. And they're really great places to shop too, to get new things. Just because someone else has worn them or used them doesn't mean they aren't still great for someone else to use. So Jeremy thinks he sees something at the third thrift shop. Black shoes with 2 white stripes, high tops, perfect shape, $2.50. Those shoes. So we found them at the thrift shop for $2.50, which is much less than they cost at the retail store. My heart is pounding hard as I take off my shoes and hitch up my baggy socks. "How exciting," Grandma says. "What size are they?" I shove my foot into the first shoe, curling my toes to get my heel in. I don't know, but I think they fit. Do you think they fit, Jeremy? I think they might be a little too small. Grandma kneels on the floor and feels for my toes at the end of the shoe. "Oh, Jeremy," she says, "I can't spend good money on shoes that don't fit." I pull the other shoe on and try to walk around. "They're okay," I say, holding my breath and praying that my toes will fall off right then and there. But my toes don't fall off. I buy them anyway with my own money, and I squeeze them on and limp to the bus stop. Why do you think Jeremy bought the shoes, even though they were too small? He really wanted them, right? And so he's going to try and make them work no matter what. At home a few days later, Grandma puts a new pair of snow boots in my closet and doesn't say a word about my 2 big feet shuffling around in my 2 small shoes. "Sometimes shoes stretch," I say. Grandma gives me a hug. I check every day, but those shoes don't stretch. I have to wear Mr. Alfrey's to school instead. One day during math, I glance at Antonio's shoes. One of them is taped up, and his feet look smaller than mine. So Jeremy sees that his friend's shoes are coming apart too, and they're kind of taped together. After school, I head to the park to think. Antonio was there, the only kid who didn't laugh at my Mr. Alfrey shoes. What do you think Jeremy's thinking about? What do you think he's trying to decide? We shoot baskets. A loose piece of tape on Antonio's shoes smacks the concrete every time he jumps. I think I'm not going to do it. We leap off the swings. I'm not going to do it. We race from one end of the playground to the other. I'm not going to do it, I say. Do what? Antonio says, breathing hard. What do you think Jeremy's not going to do? What's he trying to decide? Is it about his high-top sneakers? Grandma calls me for supper and invites Antonio over too. After supper, he spies my shoes. How come you don't wear them? Antonio asks. I shrug. My hands are sweaty. I can feel him wishing those shoes were his. That night, I am awake for a long time thinking about Antonio. When morning comes, I try on my shoes one last time. Before I can change my mind, the shoes are in my coat. Snow is beginning to fall as I run across the street to Antonio's apartment. I put the shoes in front of his door, push the doorbell, and run. So Jeremy left those shoes that meant so much to him. He left them for his friend Antonio, the only one who didn't laugh at him or make fun of him for not having those shoes when he didn't have them. Antonio seems like a pretty good friend. At school, Antonio is smiling big in his brand new shoes. I feel happy when I look at his face, and mad when I look at my Mr. Alfrey shoes. So Jeremy feels good because he made someone else happy. It feels good to give back to other people. But later, when it's time for recess, something happens. Everywhere there is snow. Leave your shoes in the hall and change into your boots, the teacher announces. Leave your shoes in the hall. It's then I remember what I have in my backpack. New boots. New black boots that no kid has ever worn before. Standing in line to go to recess, Antonio leans forward and says, "Thanks." I smile and give him a nudge. Let's race. That's the end of our story today. And we really got to see some different kids in that story. We saw Jeremy, who decided to make a difference for Antonio and give him those shoes, even though they meant so much to him, because Antonio could wear them, right? They fit him. And there were some kids who could buy the shoes, right? Their families had the money in order to do that, but not every family does. Not every family has the money to buy a whole bunch of wants, those things that we want and we wish we could have, but we don't really need to survive. So it's something to keep in mind and think about as we look at different people. In the past, we talked about race. Everybody has a different race or mix of races, a different family heritage. We come from different places. As we talked about before in week 1, everybody has a different family structure. Jeremy lived with his grandma. That's his family. But other kids live with different families in different houses, and we all have different socioeconomic statuses. We all have different levels of education and different amounts of money, and that's okay. That makes us different. And sometimes we have to be a little bit creative to come up with ways to get those things that we want, just like Jeremy found those shoes at the thrift store and paid with his own money for them. He saved up on his own to get what he was really hoping for. So our family activity today is a little bit different than before because we at the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio are encouraging you and your family to give back to your community. So just like Jeremy gave back to Antonio, he gave those shoes to his friend. There are plenty of ways for you to give back regardless of socioeconomic status or how much money your family has. You don't have to have a lot of money to make a difference in someone's life and to make someone happy, just like Jeremy did for his friend. So we've put a link below. So check this out with your family and who you live with at home. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can volunteer right online. I know we're staying at home right now a bit more, so you might not be able to go out and volunteer, but there are many ways that you can volunteer online, and there's opportunities for all different ages at the link below. We wanted to give you some other opportunities as well that you can do not online while we're at home. Try writing letters and delivering them to a local nursing home or senior living facility, because a lot of our seniors don't get to see family right now, and getting letters would mean a lot to them and would brighten their day and make them smile, just like Jeremy made Antonio smile. You can foster animals from your local animal shelter if that's something your family would like to do. There's a lot of animals who need homes right now and always. When you're out walking around, pick up some litter at the park, or if you live near the water, at the beach. Really work to make our earth a better place to be. If you have the ability to pay for someone else's coffee or groceries or something little at the store, really paying that kindness forward will come back to you. Spreading kindness and connection, even just through a video call. Call that family member you haven't talked to in a while, or call a friend or a classmate that you haven't seen or haven't thought to check in on. Also, if you're doing some spring cleaning, like those thrift stores take donations in the story, there's a way to have someone come to your house and pick up your donations. If you want to clean out your closet and give clothes and shoes and household goods to other people who need them, check out the link, donatestuff.com. They give to local charities. You can pick which charity, and they'll come to your house and pick up all of your donations. And that way you have a cleaner house and people have things that they need, just like Jeremy and his grandma. Thank you so much for joining us for week 4 as we talked about socioeconomic status through the story, Those Shoes. To get a copy of Those Shoes by Mary Beth Bolts, visit the link at the bottom of the screen. Also check out the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio's website, diversitycenter.org, for more information or to give back through our Diversity Center programming. Thanks so much. We'll see y'all next week.